disruptive.
America that I fought.
Weird thing to happen. Hello, one and all, to this edition of Kitz Corner. Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. I tried my hardest to avoid social media post-election because I knew coming out of a Donald Trump win was going to cause a ruckus, going to cause a stir of meltdowns, good, the bad, and the ugly, as you're about to see later on, because compilation of insanity that came post-election with Kamala Harris being defeated. But there was a lot of missteps that the Democratic Party obviously did to themselves that cost them a lot of votes and just absolute devastation to their own party. And instead of taking the time to step back and take a moment of grief and actually look at the consequences of their own wrongdoings, they're continuously going after people. They're continuously telling them that they're misogynist, racist, and even going after Black and brown people after disenfranchising them by saying they're the racist ones, they're the misogynist ones. That is not always the case. And I did a whole Substack article about the multiple reasons that Kamala Harris failed her own campaign on my Substack feed. You check it out for yourself, kitzcorner.substack.com. It's a bit of a fair read, but it's a great analysis of the whole election outcome, about the whole campaign season, and how people like Kamala Harris is just another representation of why this party continues to fail. Why this party that, you know, came a storm in 2008 with Barack Obama just failed the people so badly that a game show host once again became victorious. And it caused a lot of stir. But I saw this on social media because it's hard to avoid social media. It's hard to avoid places like X and, you know, TikTok and all these outlets because of the show you're doing this. But I did see this that I thought was interesting. So a young Trump supporter stands his ground while debating the teacher and his classmates at a high school in Chicago. This is a fairly big blue state, the state of Illinois. Chicago, obviously a big blue city, metropolitan. And this high schooler is about to have a discussion on why exactly people are so flabbergasted on a Donald Trump victory. And this is something I have not seen a lot of when it comes to all the coverage, all the analysis, the people that are posting, you know, ugly cries on TikTok. I don't see a lot of this just conversation about what exactly are people in pain about? What exactly is causing this meltdown, paranoia, liberal, you know, psychoticness that Donald Trump became elected president? So take a look at this.
I brought up education once I asked that question.
I don't even like you.
What right is he taking away from women?
He don't like your race. He will spit on you. He don't even like
what right is he taking away from women?
He don't like y'all. He don't like none of us. He doesn't like Mexicans. He don't even like his own race.
What right is he taking away from women? Y'all still not answering my question. I've been asking for like 5.
So he makes the point of, you know, everyone's concerned about women's rights. Everyone's having this, you know, freakazoid meltdown on the fact that Donald Trump, supposedly, according to the logic of this, he's going to take women's rights. He's going to take away Roe v. Wade. He's going to take away reproductive rights and freedoms of women and girls. That he's going to be stepping women back. But as this kid is pointing out, what exactly is the policy that's going to restrict people away from this? What exactly is he doing to fundamentally discourage women's rights? And a lot of these kids come up short with an answer. They don't have an answer to that. They go right to, well, he doesn't like any of us. He doesn't like black people. He doesn't like brown people, even though they came out in huge numbers of support for him. Kind of suspicious for a white supremacist that you get a cultivization of white people, brown people, black people, Latinos, immigrants, coming all together in support of this guy who you claim is Hitler. That kind of ruins that image. It kind of ruins first that bubble of mislogic there. Maybe it's something to do with the fact that because they knew the Democratic Party, ruled by people like Joe Biden. Joe Biden mass incarcerated the most black people. He came up with the 1994 race-baiting incarceration bill. Maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe they knew that Kamala Harris is also a mass incarcerationist. That she wants to lock up more and more parents for truancy. That's her entire career up to the point of being senator. She was proudly locking up as many black people in the state of California. Proudly going against the own Supreme Court with their malice practice of being a prosecutor. Maybe that's a reason. But let's press
We
it.
answered it.
What was the
three
answer?
times. We answered it.
Y'all brought up education once I asked that question.
We
Because y'all don't even know what y'all talking about. Y'all just go on Twitter, look at what they say, and just run with it.
Myron, you go on Twitter. I watched the debate. I heard everything.
Y'all
you
thought
said.
he was taking away abortions. He can't even do that.
Myron, what debate did you watch?
Yo, he's so stupid. Yes, please look at the Chromebook. So I want to see what right
I
he
don't
taking.
look
Let
at
me
no
search it
Chromebook.
up.
Go look at
What
the
right?
debate. Go look
Let's
at
see
the
what
debate.
right he's taking away from
Go look
women.
at what he's saying
Let's see
now.
what right he's taking away from women. Let's watch it.
Okay, let's
watch
see
it.
what he's giving you when he is president.
No, what right is he taking away from women?
Let's see what he's doing for
Because they
you.
said that last time.
The rights and abortion was over.
And y'all also said Project 25. He also said publicly he's not going to do no Project 25.
He's a liar. Do you believe him? Nigga,
He's a liar. Yeah, again, I love the misnomer of these people, the mental gymnastics of these people. Well, we can't have Trump in office because he's a liar. As opposed to any other politician that gets in office. You can't even step foot at a place like the White House, at a place like the Capitol building, in a place like the Parliament here in Canada, without being a notorious liar. You can't even step foot on those grounds without being a notorious liar. And if you think that people, honestly, are angry at the fact that they're angry at Donald Trump's win because he's a notorious liar, well, I got some boosters out back to sell you then. It's because he's a liar. Or maybe he's just not a correct liar. You know, you're supposed to lie for the establishment, not lie against it. Oh my God. And they bring up Project 2025, which we know is just verbatim that they're trying to use to scapegoat and fearmonger against him to swing people away of the Democratic Party, the same Democratic Party that is in support of global agendas like Project 2030, like the Great Reset, which is far more dangerous than anything Project 2025 dares to believe. Those are just suggestions that came with the Heritage Foundation. The same Heritage Foundation that brought you Obamacare. Think about that. Think about that.
Y'all only want Kamala Harris.
Your body, my choice. That's what Nick.
Why do you need an abortion? Why do you care about abortion? You're in high school.
it doesn't matter.
You're in high school.
Women get pregnant. Women our ages get pregnant.
Is you
They
getting
get
pregnant?
raped.
Is you getting pregnant? Did you get pregnant
I
once?
shouldn't have to fear that though.
Are you even a? You're probably a virgin. You're worried about the wrong things, yo. Abortion is never one of y'all lists. We got wars. People trying to have wars with us, and y'all worried about abortion. Because they slow.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Here you are in a classroom, screaming at the top of your lungs, "Oh my God, what if I get pregnant? What don't you care about my body, my choice?" Well, first of all, they don't. First of all, they don't. We saw that with COVID. They obviously don't care about your body, your choice. That used to be the case until big pharmaceuticals planted their flags in government and decided to strip that completely. So now they went from my body, my choice to pro-abortion, which nobody's really pro-abortion. That's just insane. That's like saying you're pro-suicide. That's absolutely crazy. And blurts that out like it's Christmas Day. But maybe also look at the fact that maybe the reason why people, and especially parents, came forward with Trump is not to restrict your daughter's rights of getting an abortion. Maybe it's something to do with the fact that while you're sitting in a classroom, there's a possibility you might have to grow up and be enlisted into a heinous war. Maybe that's the case. Maybe that's the case. Why so many people of all walks of life came forward in support of a game show host that you call a notorious liar. He said he hates all of us. That maybe he wants to protect children in America from being subsequently enlisted in a heinous war created by the rest of the establishment, by the anti-Trumpers, by the neocons that want to ship your kids off into these heinous, just awful, disparaging wars. Maybe that's the case.
Y'all worried about abortion. Y'all not even having sex. Like, look at y'all.
It don't matter if we was.
Then we have to take, let's focus on the antebellum era during the Civil War, the origins of the Civil War.
Yeah, let's focus on that. People don't want to talk about how Trump is a good president. What's wrong with voting for Trump?
We could, well, just listen, that we could still be friends after the election. I said, no, we can't.
You stop being friends with us because they voted for Trump? Teacher, I'm like way more.
He's saying you can still be respectful and that you can still have mutual terms with that person despite others having different
What are you
sides to
talking
other.
about? He just said his friends, those that he hang with, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said they asked you if you still gonna be cool after this. Right.
I just can't believe this is what education has brought us to. That, hey, instead of actually talking about civics, talking about why exactly Trump got people enough to vote for him, maybe talk about policy, maybe talk about institutions that are failing people and why people came out in support for him, why immigrants, Latinos, black people, brown people, all people of walks of life came in solidarity to understand that the Democratic Party, because they ran a deep state campaign of mistrust, misinformation, complete heinous regard against the ordinary population, that they ran really on no policy. No policy, just the same status quo that screwed people for many, many, many years. Instead of talking about that, they're just opening the floor to, well, should we be friends with people that vote for Trump? What? Are they educating these people to go on MSNBC? Are they trying to get a round table going of whether or not you should be friends with Trump voters? As they bitch and complain about how the country is further divided. Why can't we get along? I don't know. Maybe because you're constantly having discussions of whether or not to be friends with people that vote differently than you. Maybe that's it. Even the teacher is saying this garbage. Baffles me.
Right or wrong? So what are you talking about, ma'am?
No, Dad, again, let's not single anybody out, Myron.
No, because he said that's not what you said. I'm like, what are you talking about?
She said anything.
Everybody entitled to their own opinion now.
Right. So
Right.
why would you cut somebody off because they voted for Trump?
He didn't say, well, he can do
But
what
you
he
can't
wants.
dominate the discussion.
I never said you could.
If you want
Wanna
to,
cut somebody
if
out?
you want to have some input to the dialogue, then you have to do so in a respectful manner and to be tolerant of each other's views.
He did.
Now, just because I think I expected that our country citizens were more decent.
Because they voted for Trump, they're not?
Yes.
What?
He's
Jared.
a messed up person.
So even the teacher's like, well, there's no more decency because people vote for Trump. Do you understand why people have this upside down logic? Do you understand why common sense completely died off? Do you understand why? It literally is a mind virus. It literally is just an absolute disregard for any sense of reality. That you even have teachers chime in saying that you can't have decency with any other person because they voted for Trump in a high school. In a high school. Instead of educating people on the facts, having, actual engagements on civics and government and democracy and how your democracy has been stolen from you for the last 4 decades. No education on that, but let's discuss how you can't be friends with people that voted a different candidate than you because they are not decent enough for this country. And then they go on social media and whine about, why is everyone so divided? Why is everyone so divided? Why can't we have civility anymore? It's so disgusting. Maybe because you're purposely dividing them. Maybe because you're purposely dividing them. Maybe because you're getting your insight from garbage like this. MSNBC encourages viewers to completely cut off family and friends who voted for Trump. This is a news network. A news network telling their own audience, hey, you need to cut the ties from your own friends, your own family members who have been by your side throughout your life that maybe are great, good friends, have a solid foundation relationship whatsoever. You have to cut them off because they think differently than you. First of all, if that's the case, you're not friends to begin with. You're not friends to begin with. If you can't be civil, if you can't have discussions, if you can't engage in a just common basis sense of reality, if you can't engage in a comprehensive conversation with somebody else, clearly you're not supposed to be friends, period. But here's Joy-Ann Reid, and not sure interviewing here, just clearly demanding their viewers to cut people out of society. Listen to this.
How do you interact with people who voted for this, right? If you are an LGBTQ person and someone in your family voted essentially against your rights, or you're a woman, knowing that, this man was calling people the B word, J.D. Vance was literally calling Kamala Harris the trash and said, we're going to take out the trash. I know a lot of Black women were incredibly triggered by that. And if you then meet somebody and they voted for the people who called you trash, or if you're Puerto Rican, and someone voted that way, do you recommend, just from a psychological standpoint, being around them? We got the holidays coming up.
So I love that you asked this question because, there is a push, I think just a societal norm that if somebody is your family, that they are entitled to your time. And I think the answer is absolutely not. So if you are going into a situation where you have family members, where you have close friends who have voted in ways that are against you, like what you said, against your livelihood.
Of course, from Yale University. Of course. And also, she's a doctor of child psychiatry fellow. How do you think that's going to look for children? That MSNBC is telling people you can't talk to other family members because they voted differently than you. Considering the fact that you raised yourself to be this tolerant individual, that all people are unique and special, and we got to tolerate people, we got to understand each other so we can be civil towards each other. Here you are going on television telling you need to break up families. You need to disembarge friends. You're not allowed to give them time or day because they voted differently than you. Instead of having understanding and sympathy towards why they may have voted for that candidate. Unbelievable. Of course, you have a mainstream persona like Joy-Ann Reid, who goes on an hour a day, goes back to her penthouse, has no connection to reality whatsoever, and she brings on this ivory tower PhD, who again is so disconnected with reality. How about instead of actually separating more of this country, you actually go and talk to the people. You go out to the streets, you get a microphone, you get a camcorder out there, and you talk directly with the people on why they voted for Trump. Why exactly this huge turnout? Again, I wrote a whole huge article on this on Substack. Feel free to check it out, kitzcorner.substack.com. 10 top reasons why Kamala Harris failed her own campaign. It is a very long read, but that's just only the top 10. That's just like scratching the surface of how horrendous her campaign was. And it's because of stuff like this. It's because you're furthering the divide by putting yourself in the illusion that you're tolerable. Well, we need to create a tolerant society. How do you do that? Well, you need to get away people that and not give them time of day if they vote differently than you. How's that going to be a winnable argument? How is that going to convince people? That's going to drive people further away. How are you going to explain that to a child that, you know, their parents are going to have to get divorced because maybe mom voted Kamala for, you know, a woman president and dad voted Trump because, I don't know, affordability. Maybe they don't want their kids in war. You know, there's a lot of mothers out there that also supported Trump. Are they just anti-woman now? According to this stupid logic? Are they now anti-woman? Do you classify them as a woman? You don't even know what a woman is. So, I don't even know why we're even having these ridiculous meltdowns. You can't even single-handedly define a woman. And yet somehow we're so angered at the fact that we never got a female president out of this. Maybe not run one directly from the deep state. And I also want to highlight that while people are in this uproar rhetoric on the fact that Trump is restricting things like abortion, take note on the ballot initiatives that passed in 2024 just last week, because that's what really matters. And that is what is truly amazing about democracy, is that it's not so much the person, but if you put policy in front of people, if you give people the opportunity to vote certain policies in battleground states, you will be surprised the miraculous outcome of a lot of these states. A lot of these states that voted for Donald Trump, that are deep red states, a lot of them voted for progressive policies, as you're about to see here. So here's abortion, for example, in Arizona. A deep red state like Arizona passed the right to an abortion. Colorado, right to an abortion and health insurance coverage. Here's Maryland, right to an abortion, passed. Missouri, passed. Another deep red state, passed the right to an abortion. Montana, another deep red state, passed for an abortion. Nebraska, amendment prohibit abortions after first trimester. Okay, that I guess that sounds a bit reasonable. But they also say they make an exception on sexual assault and incest. Nevada, another red state, passed abortion. New York passed an abortion. Now you're noticing that places like South Dakota and Florida did not pass. They did not meet the mark. Even though they have substantial, if you look at the percentage points, look at this, 52 or 57.2% voted in favor of abortion. If that's the case, and if Trump goes ahead and relieves the duties of abortion to individual states, it makes it easier for people to fight against their state government than it is to try to overturn the federal government's response of this, because the federal government, how deeply corrupted that is, how deeply entrenched of its own self-interest, it is substantially harder to try to balance out protections of women's rights than it would be to lower that to the state level. So places like Florida and South Dakota, if the majority of the population is in favor of a right to abortion, it makes it easier for people to challenge the state government, which is the whole purpose of Trump, the whole purpose of why he's doing this. He wants to pass it on to the states, that the states can manage it more properly than the federal government. That makes sense to me as a Canadian. That's why I would be in favor for this. He never said he was going to overturn it. He never said there was going to be a federal ban to it. He said he was going to bring it over to the states, which is something that even Ruth Bader Ginsburg agreed to a while back. Ruth Bader Ginsburg agreed to this. Donald Trump is moving forward with this to put this onto the states. Very similar to this we have here in Canada, where, yes, you may have a federal mandate making sure that every single province has the measure to, say, basic healthcare coverage for all citizens, but that management goes towards the provinces. The provinces have the duty and responsibility to figure out what is best for their citizens, and it's easier to fight the state or the province than it is to fight the federal governments. That makes a lot more sense than the situation that they're in right now. But, of course, if you're watching programs like MSNBC or CNN or any of this other mainstream garbage, they're going to continue pandering and telling you that, hey, you got to cut people out of society. You got to create this little shadow. You got to create this bubble and insulate yourself from the rest of reality, which is more self-harm than it does helping people. It's more dangerous for those people than it is actually making a substantial argument. Because even red states, predominant red states, vote for progressive policies. So maybe you guys actually have a lot in common if you actually sit down and talk like rational adults and not give the advice from Joy Ann Reid.